Have you ever had so many hard things hit you at once that it felt like you were just trying to keep your head above water? When all you want is one piece of good news, just one thing to finally go right, only to be met with more challenges or disappointments? Well, in today's conversation, we're going to talk about these kind of seasons in our lives because the truth is, we're all walking through them at different points and times. So I would like to share what's been helping me catch my breath in moments like these and what's been helping me see past what's happening around me. So thank you so much for joining me as we discover the beauty of becoming together. In full transparency with y'all, I was actually recently in a season like this where I just really had this deep disappointment in God. And it wasn't something that just happened all of a sudden. Like it was this slow process of a disappointment here and a disappointment there, something going wrong here. And just kind of all started compiling and multiplying. And I can always tell when it's getting to a bad place, when there are certain worship songs that I hear and I'm like, I can't sing that one right now, just because I knew that I couldn't honestly stand behind the words. And I think for me, I love worship, and it's so important to me that whenever I sing and whenever I lead worship, like I want it to come from an authentic place. And I don't just want to do lip service, like I really want to stand behind and believe the words that I'm speaking. And I knew that was kind of what tipped me off of like, oh, Whitney, I may need to kind of look into this more, because like there are these things that I'm feeling I can't like pray and sing to God. And I know that's not a good place to be in. And it was just this time of like, not only was I not seeing God moving in the areas I so desperately want him to, but it was like one thing after another, just more bad news after more bad news. People I love going through some really difficult times, and some being diagnosed with some, like diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and, just kind of that questioning of like, okay, God, these are some like really good people. And I know like our works don't save us, but like, why are all of these bad things happening to like such amazing, incredible people? And this was like on top of just some like loneliness I was dealing with, and just like relational conflict that I was dealing with personally. And it was just a lot. And I found myself just in this headspace that I knew wasn't a good headspace to be in. So I was like, all right, I have to do something about this. So I was at church one Sunday, and they called up the prayer team to like during worship, just as normal. And I was like, you know what? I think something I can do is at least go up for prayer and just have someone partner with me. And so I decided to go up and just kind of briefly told them what I was going through. And it was a couple of the pastoral staff actually that I ended up praying with. And one of them said, she's like, I'm getting this vision, and I just see you surrounded by all of these beams, and the word disappointment was just like written all over them. And they represent just like all of this disappointment that's going on in your life. And I think when I had gone up and asked for prayer, I didn't use the word disappointment. I think I had just like, was just like, I'm really discouraged because all of these like really hard things are going on. And, walking, even just thinking of another one, like walking through a loved one with some like really difficult health issues as well. And so it was just literally like thing after thing. And it's still, some of the stuff is still going on currently, but it was just like becoming all consuming at this point. And so anyways, she was talking about seeing this vision and seeing the beams and them just like representing disappointment. And she said, and I see you looking around, and like all you can see were these disappointing circumstances around you. Just like everywhere you looked, everywhere your head turned, like it was just disappointment after disappointment. And she was like, but then I heard God's voice saying, look up at me. I've been here all along. Just look up. And this vision that she shared really impacted me for a couple of reasons. And the first was it just helped to validate the fact that I actually was surrounded by a lot of hard things. And just the fact that like God didn't minimize what I was going through and I wasn't overreacting. Like I don't know, like it was just a validating thing to be like, because I think sometimes it's easy for me to just heap shame on myself of like, oh, come on, Whitney, just like get over it. Just keep moving forward. And it was just this moment of God being like, no, like I see you. I see the difficult things you're walking through and they're real, they're tangible, and they're all around you. And so it was just like, I appreciated that God like saw where I was at and validated it. But secondly, that vision also reminded me that I get to choose what I focus on. So yeah, I could continue looking at all these hard and seemingly hopeless situations, or I could lift my eyes to Him to sustain me through it all. It reminds me of one of my favorite verses in Psalms. It's chapter 121, verses 1 and 2. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. And I realized in that moment I had a choice. Regardless of where I looked, I was going to be going through these difficult situations. Like they were here, they were happening. More seemed to be coming by the hour. Like they were here. So I could choose to look at those difficult situations, but why not look at God? Right? Like if I'm going to be going through these things either way, like why not just look at God? Also around this time frame, I woke up in the middle of the night and to get up to use the bathroom like I always do. And it was crazy because it was just like as soon as my feet hit the floor and I stood up, instantly the Lord spoke to me. And I would love to be like, guys, this happens all the time. Like me and God got it like that. Like, I mean, He probably would love to do that, but I like live too distracted. So yeah, but it's like cool when those moments do happen. Cause I'm like, oh, I hear you, God. So yeah, I was like, as soon as I stood up and I just woke up out of dead sleep. So I wasn't thinking about anything. And instantly like the Lord in my mind spoke to me. And He was like, Whitney, the problem with living with disappointment in God is it leaves you to your own rationale. And it like stopped me. And I was like, oh, dang, like I know where my rationale gets me, right? Like I know what I tend to do when I fill in the blanks and when I try to explain like why God's doing what He's doing or why this is happening. And it's not good. Like I don't want to be left to my rationale. I would rather choose to like live in the uncertainty of not knowing like why things are happening the way that they are or they aren't happening. I would rather live in that uncertainty and trust Him than to choose to hold on to my disappointment and be left to create my own conclusions and be left to my own logic about what these things were or why they were happening or why they weren't happening in my life. So between, that moment of the Lord speaking to me and then being prayed for at church, I was like, okay, I really need to shift my focus here. I can't keep doing this. So one of the things that came to mind was just gratitude. And it's typically like the last thing you want to do when you're in these moments. But I was like, no, I know the Bible talks about gratitude. I know I have to shift my mind here. I have to get out of this headspace. So the first thing I had thought about was like, I'll start a gratitude journal. But instantly, like what I didn't want to do was just write down a bunch of things I'm grateful for and just like pretending like I wasn't still hurting in the midst of it, kind of that like toxic optimism kind of mindset. But what I've really begun to learn just through this process is like, it doesn't have to be either or. I can hold space for the pain I'm experiencing and simultaneously hold space for the things I'm thankful for. Like they can both coexist. So I follow this account on Instagram called Soul Shepherding, and they had a post on gratitude that I think does a really good job of explaining this like dichotomy, I guess, of like going through these difficult things, these difficult emotions, but also like being able to have genuine gratitude where it's not that like toxic optimism. I'm going to shove it all down and pretend it's not happening just so I can say I'm grateful, so I can like check that box. So the post said, gratitude doesn't erase your pain. It invites God into it. It's not forced. It's not shallow. It's not fake. It's gratitude with your whole heart, messy emotions and all. Then they go on to say, instead of faking a smile, pushing your emotions aside, pretending everything's okay, acknowledge your pain, bring it to the Lord in prayer, and thank God for his presence and the good gifts in your life. I don't know about you, but that is not the definition of gratitude that I grew up believing. Whether that was my own rationale of like what I thought gratitude was, or whether that's what was like the church was teaching me, I don't know. But it wasn't holding both and being like genuine and like authentic of like, hey, yeah, actually this really hard thing is going on, but God, like you're still good, and there still are these good things that are happening in my life too. And so we can be grateful and not have to ignore the tough realities that we might currently be facing. And I'd like to go deeper down this road, but I'm actually going to be recording an episode that I'll be releasing more on like this topic of lament and things later on in the season. So I don't want to spoil what I'll be sharing then. But I would love to give you ladies some ideas that I've tried when it comes to gratitude, in hopes that it helps shift your eyes on the Lord in the season instead of your circumstances. Because the truth is, you have every right to look at and be focused on the hard things that are happening in your life right now. Some of you listening are going through some really difficult things, and you're feeling all of the hard feelings, and God sees you and is right there with you in the midst of it. However, in my experience, focusing on my circumstances never actually changed anything. But focusing on God, that has opened up opportunities and possibilities that were not previously possible when my focus was just on what's in front of me. So here are some of my practical tips for how to practice gratitude when you feel like you don't have much to be thankful for. So the first thing I've been practicing is a gratitude journal. So before you tune out, because that sounds like the most basic advice ever, like no duh, if you want to grow in gratitude, start a journal. I'd love to talk about what exactly has made this so helpful for me in the season, because I don't know about you, but I have never been good at keeping a gratitude journal, because how I treated it before was I would just write down a list of things, as many as I could think of, and all the things that like I should be grateful for, and just line by line by line. But then I would feel just as discontent after writing as I did before writing. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do a gratitude journal for real, I need to know how to like do this thing right. So literally just typed into Google like how do you gratitude journal? And Google compiled the following suggestions, and they've really helped. So I do this during my devotional time in the mornings, which if you're not doing a morning devotional time where you're like reading scripture and praying and worshiping, that might also be a good thing to add to this list. But it's something that only takes a few minutes. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it in the mornings when I'm already kind of in that space. So what Google pulled up and suggested was aim for like 3 to 5 specific things that you're grateful for. And so instead of like before where I was like 100 things I'm grateful for, just bringing that down to like 3 to 5, but then going deeper with it and like what you're grateful for and why. So instead of just saying you're thankful for your friends, saying something like, I'm thankful for this specific friend who always calls to check in and to see how I'm like really doing. Or, I'm thankful for my job and just like the flexibility that it's given me to, be there for my loved ones, or like, fill in the blanks, but just like taking it deeper and not just like, I'm thankful for my job, but like, what makes you thankful for that? Because that just makes these like, gives you these deeper feelings of appreciation for the things that you're grateful for. So it's about choosing to go in depth with fewer entries versus like writing a ton of the surface level things. And it's really been a helpful tool for me to take my focus off of just like all of the hard stuff in my life and just remembering that like there are still good things that exist even in the midst of the difficulties. So the next thing that has helped me in this kind of season is to volunteer. And I don't know, anytime I help others that maybe aren't as fortunate as I am, or they're just in a really tough spot, it's just been an eye-opening experience. And to be honest, like it's something I felt like I've been needing to do, but thinking of how like I'm already going through so much, like now I need to go look for a place to volunteer at. And there was just kind of like an overwhelming thing, but actually it was cool. One of my friends, Brittany, she had asked me to volunteer with her at this food bank, and the timing didn't work out. Like probably a few months prior to this time frame that I've been talking about in this episode. And so, but she had talked about like, it's super easy to volunteer. There's like a website, you just pick your time. And so that popped in my mind. And I was like, okay, I need to volunteer somewhere. I don't know if this is a place where I ultimately want to land, like if this is the best fit of a volunteer opportunity, but like it's a start. And I decided like Newton's law of motion, well, a body in motion will continue in motion kind of thing. I'm like, if I can at least just get myself to start volunteering somewhere, even if it's like not a good fit, I can, if I'm already in the routine of like volunteering once or twice a month or whatever, like it'll be way easier to switch than to just to start the whole process. So, but it was a really cool thing because I actually loved, when I volunteered, I loved it and found out that they have opportunities with like gardening and different things too that I really like. That's something I really enjoy doing. So I'm super excited to kind of explore more of those opportunities this month. I already signed up and it was a great way to like meet new people. So yeah, I definitely recommend if you're not volunteering somewhere, and I'm volunteering a ton in my church, but there's something about like volunteering outside of the 4 walls of the church. Like there's absolutely value, and we need to be volunteering within our, body of Christ, like wherever we're attending church. But there's definitely, I don't know, it's been cool to be like outside of the 4 walls too, helping people. So something else that I've started this year is, I've been trying to be intentional about building rhythms and routines starting this year, and things just like and some of you may like have already been doing this, but things like an Advent devotional leading up to Christmas, or, during like the season of Lent, just really like being intentional about that time and just, yeah, creating these like rhythms and practices that are just kind of like refocusing and like recentering me with the Lord. And something new that I tried this year leading up to Thanksgiving was it's a challenge called the 14 Days of Gratitude. And it's something a counselor sent me like at some point in time, and I like found it in my email and printed it off. But it's almost like this bingo card type of thing, but it's 14 different ways that you can practice gratitude. And in full transparency, I have not completed it in 14 days. It's going to look like 30 days of doing 14 practices of gratitude. But that's okay, because life's been crazy. But it's been a really cool, I think I've knocked off, like, as of the recording, like 3 or 4 things off the list. But it's just been a neat way to just be really intentional about like and they're simple things. Like the one that I printed out has like, bake something or cook something for someone you love, and like write a thank you card to someone who's helped you recently. And they're really, I mean, I guess baking and cooking is a little more involved, but a lot of them are just like, leave a little bit more of a tip when at the coffee shop or at a restaurant for someone who's like provided you service. So a lot of them are like things that are really either I'm already doing, so why not just like take it a little bit further and like bless that person, such as going to a coffee shop, or writing a card like is not super time consuming, but it's like these little things that are shifting my perspective of like back to gratitude of like, yes, there are all of these like difficult things happening, but I can take these like small moments and remember that friend that helped me, right? Or I can remember what it was like to be in food service and to have a bad day, but yet to have someone like tip me way more than I deserved just because they were being a genuinely awesome person and a generous person. So I've loved doing these 14 days or 30 days of 14 practices. But that doesn't sound as good, right? As like the 14 days of giving thanks. So yeah, doing these 3 acts that I talked about, like the gratitude journal, volunteering, and finding the practical ways to show gratitude, that doesn't change the fact that I'm still surrounded by some really hard situations. There are some realities that like I'm having to face in prayers of surrender that I'm still having to pray, but it's lifting my eyes to Jesus in the midst of it all, right? Like it's reminding me everything is not about me. I don't know about you, but every so often I need to be reminded everything is not about me. And it's acknowledging that like I'm not the only one experiencing hard times. It's allowing me to build trust with Jesus that even though I'm not happy about everything that's happening right now, I can see and I can feel that he's with me in the middle of it all. And if he's present with me, I can't help but believe he's working on my behalf in ways I can't yet see. So in this season, I'm deciding and I'm choosing gratitude. And I'm choosing, like in that vision that the woman from my church had shared about, in the midst of all the disappointment, all you have to do is look up. Like God's always been there. Just look up. So I'm choosing to look up in this season. Will you join me? Thank you so much, ladies, for joining the conversation today. If you're in a season where it's hard to see or feel God's goodness in your life, I'd like to encourage you to try one or maybe all of the practices I shared with you today. And just as a reminder, those are keep a gratitude journal. And just remember, it's about going deep into a few things you're grateful for, not listing off a million things like I used to do and then not feeling any differently afterwards. The second practice is choosing a time to volunteer in your community as just a way to invest and give back to your community. And lastly, trying a fun new rhythm that focuses on gratitude. You can just hop on Pinterest or Google to find challenges like the 14 days of gratitude, or you can create your own. Maybe it's building a routine of calling a loved one more regularly or writing short notes to someone you care about once a week. By the way, can we start doing that more? I saw a post on social media of just a text versus a handwritten letter, and just how we've downgraded as humanity. And I'm like, yes, send me letters. I want the letters. But the thing is, you can get creative and base this new rhythm or routine around something you enjoy doing, whether it's writing, baking, giving gifts, whatever you enjoy. But just remember, doing these things isn't the silver bullet to make everything around you suddenly be okay. But pay attention to that subtle shift inside of you as you do them, because we may not be able to control our circumstances, but we can decide where we set our gaze. So let's lift our eyes to the hills. From where does our help come from? Our help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Thanks for listening to the Beauty of Becoming podcast. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and select the bell icon so you're notified whenever new content is posted.